think the other thing that really sticks in my head is this season was full of emotional swings, really big emotional swings. There were times when this team looked like it was rolling. We were executing at a really high level in all phases of the game, and we were putting a ton of pressure on opposing starters in the first inning, driving up pitch counts, holding the zone, coming through in big spots, and playing a brand of baseball that could beat opposing teams in a number of ways. There were also times this year where we were fighting through adversity. We were not holding the zone. We were not executing in big spots. We were not playing clean and consistent baseball in all phases of the game, and we were struggling to recapture the momentum that really drove this team for the first 5 months. Those emotional swings combined with the passion with which our fans follow and support this team created some really high highs and some really low lows. I felt those highs and I felt those lows, and I was right there with our fans in all of those moments. In some ways, it felt like this season was multiple seasons in one, multiple very different seasons in one. And we gotta take a hard look at all of it. We gotta take all the good and we gotta take all the bad, and we gotta learn from all of it. However, I think in my job, it is really important for me to step back and look at the entire season. It's really important for me to look at it from a 30,000 foot view, and I think when you do that, it is hard to characterize this season as anything other than another big step forward for an organization that's come a really long way in a short period of time.
Were there pieces that maybe weren't floated by the media that you feel like you guys could have went out and acquired, or were you unable to, make those kind of deals?
We chased a lot of players that weren't connected to us in the media. We got close on some players, we didn't get close on other deals. I think what's important is if you look at how it all played out, we went into the market thinking hey, we think the relief market's pretty deep here at the deadline, and we think the starter market is really shallow. We think it's really thin. And I think that largely played out. I think those evaluations aged pretty well. I also think we dipped into the relief market at the deadline, and we acquired the second best performing back-end reliever acquired by any contender in Finnegan. We also added another useful arm in Rafael Montero, and we added Troy Melton to the back end of our rotation. I think those three additions stabilized the back of our bullpen and got some really big outs for us. I think in the starter market, going into the deadline, we didn't think that the starters that we had access to would have started playoff games for us. We didn't think they were better than our front four at the time, was Reese, Tarek, Jack, and Casey in no particular order. So going into it, both as a reflection of our evaluation of the starters available and the starting pitching that we had, we didn't think that the players that we could have acquired in the rotation would have made a big impact for us in the postseason. So we didn't think it was in the best interest of the organization to pay steep prospect costs or take a player off our postseason roster to get a starter that we didn't think was going to factor in much into the postseason. Now, when Reese went down, it did change our starting pitching need, but it didn't change the market. And I think if you follow the starters that moved, I think there was only one starter that posted a sub-4 ERA after the deadline that got moved at the deadline. So I do actually think our evaluations of those starters were right. Do I wish that we had added more productive innings to our rotation in the deals we did? Absolutely. I definitely do. I thought Paddock and Morton performed, gave us a boost right away. Paddock had a really good start against the D-backs. Morton pitched really well in a tough environment in Philly, but they were struggling to be able to reproduce that performance down the stretch, and we needed more performance in our rotation. We weren't able to do that, and that's on me. I should have done better in the rotation, but I do think it is a reflection on the actual markets that existed, and I'm proud of the efforts that our staff did.
Spent the last couple of days, in my office, and players filtering through there and packing up lockers and saying goodbye. And I asked Carp, what's the difference between September for him and a dominant October where he was in control of all of his bats and hitting the ball at the ballpark, getting intentionally walked, mixing in a few hits, drawing a few walks. And it all centers around getting a good pitch to hit. I know that's a comment that I've said over and over and over again, and it's way easier said than done. but pitch recognition and choosing, when to be aggressive, when to be patient against each pitcher is paramount. Over 162, it's agonizing, because there's going to be peaks and valleys in everybody's year, and so we're going to continue to push our players to have an audible with the swing, where it's not always just trying to chase the pull side power, although pull side air is getting rewarded more and more and more in our game, both in winning, and in earning potential. So playing the game seems to get exposed as you get deeper into the season and you get into playoff baseball and you see things that you don't see over the course of 162. How much of that can we bring, sort of into our every day is going to be important. So we're going to look at our messaging, we're going to look at our prep, we're going to look at our game planning, how are we implementing it, who is implementing it, all the above, because it's, you got to be good at everything. So it's not pointing the finger at offense, it's not pointing the finger at defense, it's not pointing the finger at pitching. To be an elite team, and we were one of the elite teams, to be an elite team, you have to do it all, and you need it all. So I can't only focus this winter on contact. That's not going to get us where we want to get to, because we have other areas to get better at, but we are not going to be naive and think that we're going to run it back and do this again. Like one of the reasons I had such a hard time at the podium after Game 5 is that it's hard to get to where we're at. It's hard to get to run the whole race and get through the season and have 87 wins be disappointing. Like, that's hard, to have a series win in the wild card. Like, we're not going to think it's not good enough. We won the series and against a really good team, and then we get to 15 innings, one more run or one more pitch or one more defensive play, and it feels like we would be, reviewing Game 1 decisions in Game 1, offense, defense, base running, things like that, and instead we're sitting at this podium. So it's, I have great appreciation for everything that we did, but we are not going to be, we want more, and we know that we can do more and achieve, higher bars. And I'm glad that to some extent that I'm sitting here talking about all of that not being good enough. Like, what a great accomplishment for us to reset the bar as to where we're at, and know that this city, this fan base, this organization, these players, these coaches can do more.